ICQ Podcast episode 415, The Importance of WRC Agenda 9.1b. Well, hello fellow amateur radio enthusiasts, and welcome to this, our 415th episode of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, supported this episode by our monthly and subscription donors. In this episode, we join Martin M1MRB, Chris, Mike Zero, Tango Charlie Hotel, Martin, Mike Zero, Sierra Golf Lima, Frank, Kilo 4, Foxtrot Mike Hotel, Bill, Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, and Leslie, Golf Zero Charlie India Bravo, to discuss latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin, M6BOA, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is looking at the importance of WRC Agenda 9.1b. Well, as always, it's our very kind listeners that support your show, keep it advert free, and allow us to continue to publish what we do on the internet here now for well over 400 episodes. And we would like to thank all those people that create, annual monthly subscriptions to us that help us provide a base to help us out with the show. Now, if you enjoy what we do here, we'd ask you to consider us. A very simple thing we ask you to do is to think of the value you got from the show and turn that into a monetary amount, and then go to icqpodcast.com/donate, where, as I say, whatever you feel the value is, send it our way. And as I say, we'll be able to continue doing your show for you every fortnight. Right, well, now we're going to join Martin, Chris, Martin, Frank, Bill, and Leslie to discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including having fun this weekend with JOTA and web-based antenna design. As always, hope you enjoy.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to the ICQ Podcast, episode 415, and tonight's News Roundtable for that episode. Going down my list, I have Mr. Chris Howard, M0TCH. Hi, Chris.
Very good evening, Martin. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, good to have you. Also on the list, Mr. Martin Rothwell, M0SGL, that tried his best to get me in trouble at the weekend.
Do you know what? I didn't need to try my best. You were out there on your own. You gave yourself your third cup of coffee. And I like the fact that your name is also going on the list and that Chris and me are first on that list.
All right. Okay.
That's a reference if anybody gets that.
Moving across to the pond, we have Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH. Hi, Frank.
Hey, Martin. Excuse me. I'll take my thumb ring off. Good to be here.
Good to have you, Frank. Yeah, behave yourself as well. Oh, dear. Also, staying your side of the pond, we have Mr. Bill Barnes, WC3B. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Martin. Hello, everybody. And I have no idea what these two are talking about.
Well, they'll explain later, Bill. Don't worry about it. But as I say, I know that you're here as long as you can. You may get called away for work, but hopefully you can stay as long as you can anyway. So that'd be a good one. And last but not least, he's back from his holidays. He's been out there roving the Channel Islands.
Yeah, that's me, Martin. Yes, I had a great time. Thanks for inviting me on again. And I've got no idea what the conversation's about. That's all. I've got absolutely no idea.
Well, you stick with it, Leslie, because, as I say, Leslie is with us, G0CIB. And I've had an invite to go out to the Channel Islands next year. I don't know whether it's financially viable, but a couple of people at the RSGB convention asked me if I would go and do the Vintage Agricultural Show. The amateurs out there have a stand and they asked me to join them, but we'll have to see if I can arrange it. But that's a good one.
You're asking our most vintage member of the team, I think, there, Martin.
I'm not quite the most vintage member.
Not quite, but I'd love to come. I served on the Secretary of Agriculture's advisory board for 6 years, so that's right in my wheelhouse. But alas, I probably won't make it, Martin.
No, unfortunately, Frank, because if you and I get together, you know it's going to be trouble, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, mind you, they might not let us together after dating Frank. Oh, dear. Okay, let's get started. So, guys, let's look at our first news stories of the day. Well, this weekend, the weekend the podcast gets released, it's Jamboree on the air, with the Scouts making contacts with other scouts around the world and other radio stations. Now, unfortunately, I mentioned this last episode, but it's come round a lot quicker than I thought. So at least Sunday morning, any of you listening to this may be able to work a few scouts. I'm going to start in the UK. Chris, what do you think about Jamboree on the Air?
I think it's a wonderful idea. I mean, I'm not involved this year. I know, Martin, you're going to be potentially involved with a particular scout group, but no, been involved in the past with it. It's a great way of getting young people acquainted with a hobby. They're not going to walk away with a license, but they get to, even if they don't become an amateur in later life or get the bug like we have, at least they've got an appreciation what it's about. They see somebody sat in their car on a tent on a hillside somewhere with a calling CQ, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I know what that is." So it's kind of getting the message out what we do, and if one or two of them in the future decide to get involved, then that's great.
Yeah. Well, I was with you the year we had a great fun with a load of younger scouts, weren't they? I think they were cubs as well as scouts, and we were giving them license-free walkie-talkies or handy-talkies
There
to
is,
go off and play with.
if you look on YouTube, there's a video somewhere of Martin. I think it's called something like Martin on the Rope Bridge, where we got you to go up this. It wasn't designed for someone, should we say, of
Martin's
adult
weight.
proportions. I've been kind there, Martin. Adult
Yeah.
proportions. There's a bit of a stagging in the rope, wasn't there? I think, seem to recall. So it's worth a watch for a giggle. To be fair, Martin, fair play to you. You did do it. We didn't do it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I like to try and be involved, and you're dead right. That particular day, we were out with the scouts, and we had great fun with them. And yeah, I did try and get across the rope bridge, and as it's up on YouTube. It's not hidden, but I haven't seen it for years. But effectively, it was probably strung for an 8, 9, 10-year-old who weighs about 7 stone, and I'm at least twice that. And I'm going across, and instead of having the handrails at sort of waist height and walking on the wire, I think up the hand wires were like almost above my head.
It was so funny. But to be fair, Martin, I did the abseiling there as well, because I remember going there when I was with the Cubs, and I quit the Cubs because I hated it. But I remember saying, "Can I go on that?" And they would never let me on it when we were with the Cubs. And so I got to go on it when we did this. I just do feel sorry. Anybody, any businesses, anybody in the area that was genuinely trying to use PMR 446 that weekend in that area, because they would have had no hope.
Yeah, they were great fun.
And actually, that's a very good point.
Heyday.
It's a very good point, actually. So the thing that we learned that weekend, I think, was around if you are going to get involved in these sorts of things, it's the scouts or the guides or any kind of youth activities. Don't sit there and try and get on HF and bore the life out of them. Get yourself some license free, whether it's in the Europe PMR 446 or is it FRS in the States. Just give them that to go run around and play and just get used to what a radio is all about, rather than trying to force something that's probably quite boring on the necks, and they'll have great fun.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you. It was great fun. You were with me, I know, I remember. Leslie, are you doing anything with the scouts at the weekend?
No, I'm not actually, Martin. Gilware Park is just down the road from me. Literally, I'm in Chingford, and just go down Station Road, and Gilware Park's on the left. It's not far to walk at all. So I expect there to be a hive of activity from the Scouts, and I just wish them all the very best, because I know what great stuff they do there, and it's building youngsters' confidence, giving them new skills. I used to be one myself many years ago, and great, more power to their elbow.
Yeah, great one, mate. Well, as I say, you might get a few contacts because they're always looking for people to talk to. There's nothing worse
Yeah.
than calling and not getting a response. Yeah, you probably get quite a few to chat to. Right, Bill, are you involved this weekend with any of the scouts, or because it is a
No.
worldwide thing?
It is a worldwide thing. I got an invite, but it's not going to work out timing wise, so I'm not able to break away from this weekend's pre-planned stuff. But it's good that folks are still doing this. It's good they're helping out. I mean, I got a I was made aware of amateur radio in 1986 because of a similar event through the Scouts back then. I don't know if they called it JOTA back then, but I mean, at this particular point, it's if you do it right and do a positive image of amateur radio, you may not get the kid this week, but maybe you'll get them in a few years or when they're older. So it's always good to put a positive spin on this and make sure you help out and show them the positive aspects of our hobby.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. Positive is good. Frank, are you involved with this, or if,
I'm not, but I'm a big proponent of it. I'm like Bill. I've got some time conflicts. I did recently go visit the council office here, and quite frankly, it was with the motivation of inviting the Scout organization to send representatives to various ham radio clubs in the area. As part of my ARRL duties, I try to do things that help promote clubs. And I walked into the office and just introduced myself, and the receptionist says, "Look, we've got whatever the person's title was, the grand poobah of this council." And so she went back and got him, and lo and behold, he comes out wearing short pants and boots and a shirt with all the medals and all this stuff. And I must say, I was most impressed that in a corporate office setting, he had his full Boy Scout regalia, and he's somebody who's about 40 years of age. And we had a very nice visit. And we talked about ways that the Scout Council, as they're organized here, the Andrew Jackson Council, Council number 303 here in the Jackson area, could participate. And we've actually got them visiting the Jackson Amateur Radio Club. So I'm not involved in the boots on the ground part, Martin, but I'm certainly a big proponent of this activity. It's just a perfect way to reach young people.
yeah. Well, it's fun, and I'm hoping that the group that I'm joining on Saturday and Sunday got more than just radio going on. And what I mean by that is there needs to be other activities. You can't just have a group of kids sitting around waiting for something to happen. You've got to have other things for them to do in the pipeline. And often we do things like making some electronic piece of equipment, something simple, but making something like a Morse code buzzer or something like that, and other bits and pieces. So should be fun. Should be fun. That's what I'm saying. Right, moving on. I was having a look at Dan Romachek's website, KB6NU, Dan, the presenter on the other group, and he was talking about there's a new version of the amateur code that's being put together. And the amateur code has been published, I think, since about the 1928. I think it was the original one. Bill, what's your thoughts? They're trying to make it gender neutral, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, Dan's putting out a proposal to modernize it a little bit, and I mean, I really like it. It's not long, so I'm actually going to read that part of what Dan's come up with so far. But it's I like it, so I'm just going to preference that. The radio amateur is considerate. The radio amateur never knowingly operates in such a way as to lessen the pleasure of others. The radio amateur is loyal. The radio amateur is loyal to and supportive of other amateurs, local clubs, and the IARU Radio Society in their country. The radio amateur is progressive. The radio amateur station, up to date, well built, and efficient. Their operating practice is above reproach. The radio amateur is friendly. The radio amateur operates slowly and patiently when requested and offers friendly advice and counsel to beginners. They are also cooperative and considerate of the interest of others. The radio amateur is balanced. Radio amateurs realize that the radio is a hobby and never allow it to interfere with the duties owed to family, job, school, or community. And finally, the radio amateur is patriotic. The radio amateur station and skills are always ready for service to country and community. Probably why I joined Skywarn. Anyway, that's Dan's take on it. He wants feedback on his blog. Feel free to comment if you feel that this could be adjusted a little bit better. But I like how he updated it a bit, but still keeps the essence of what the original was.
Yeah, it flows better to me than what Dan has got at the moment. Frank, you would say that this is part of history, I know, but what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, it is, Martin. And there's always a little bit of a dialectic when you espouse what things should be. You can have disagreements about it. I mean, I think Bill covered that very well. If you don't have something that's pro-social, then you don't express your values. So that's it. That's inherent. And it goes back to someone who had nothing to do per se with ARRL, Paul Siegel, W9EEA in 1928. There is a history about how this has been edited, and the ARRL sort of claimed the document, if you will, for lack of a better way of putting it. And one of the things Bill said is this business about loyalty. Let me quote a ham not in the U.S., and that's Ano, VK6 FLAB, who has a very well-known audio podcast, Foundations of Amateur Radio. And he does it, I don't know, every week, I think. He raises this question about the radio amateur is loyal. And he kind of says, okay, what does loyalty look like? Can you be loyal by providing constructive feedback? Is that loyal? Giving your time and energy? Is that a loyal thing? What about being a member of a club? And what he is bringing up is something that another ham in his neck of the woods out in, I think, Tasmania, who kind of took all of us who ever criticized the ARRL to task, just stop it. Just don't criticize them. Well, gosh, where you have something that's expressed to say you shouldn't ever criticize, like, let's just take the RSGB, fellas. Should you ever criticize a volunteer organization? Well, if you have that as an
I'm in trouble on that one.
Well, obviously I'm in trouble, Leslie, over here, because I think you make a group better by constructive criticism. So now I'm going to back off of that for a minute, Martin, just to give this business of loyalty. Or as Anno said, are you loyal by giving constructive criticism? Well, I think so, because you're loyal to the group, not the organization claiming leadership of a group. And I think that is the spirit for me, that is what loyalty meant. So, I too, like Bill, joined Skywarn. I'm the North Reservoir storm spotter for the National Weather Service here in Jackson, for example, north side of a big lake that I live on. And if I call in, give them my number, they'll actually trust that I know what a quarter-size hail pellet looks like. So what Dan is doing is a great service. He was asked, and he's part of a group. Dan's not doing this totally on his own, as I understand it. And one of the things was to make it gender neutral. But anytime you start editing things, you have to, you kind of look at all of it. So I think what Dan's doing is a service to the hobby. I do have some reservations, folks across the pond, about the ARRL claiming that they can produce anything that claims to be worldwide. I wouldn't dare say that the code that's developed over here in the United States should apply to the United Kingdom, for example, or Australia or some other place. So I think it's just an idea that's expressed that gets us to think about it. And I'll end with this. I often make fun of hams who put on their email or other signatures, ham radio is not a hobby, it's a lifestyle. Well, according to this, you've gone too far. It's a hobby, and you don't interfere with your duties that are owed to a family, job, school, or community. And that's been with ham radio from the very beginning. Don't overdo it. Now, we are all very aware here in the States, and Bill is in an area of the country where hunting is a very a favored pastime and hobby. And you've got the so-called hunting widows whose husband's always gone every weekend. And I've noticed that many hams who claim ham radio is a lifestyle, not a hobby, many of them are divorced. So I don't know if there's a connection there, but I do think those two
Yes, there
elements.
is.
I think those two elements are key things that strike a chord with me, Martin. But I'm delighted that Dan's doing this, and our listeners should tell Dan what they think on this, because that's what he wants to hear.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and at least there's something written down. And all right, some of it might not be 100% relevant in the UK, and I say 100% relevant, but lots of it is relevant. And the whole thing is, if we had some of this consideration and friendliness, then we'd probably be in a much better position. Leslie, what's your thoughts on this one?
Oh, I've been biting on the bit on this one. And I am aware that the US does have a written constitution where the UK doesn't. It's all sort of bits and pieces and court decisions and some document going back to the 1500 and all that nonsense. So it's different in that sense. But coming back to the amateur radio side, some of that what was said earlier, I absolutely agree with. Some of it I'm going, and it's not just one page. If you go on the RSGB website, you can actually download this from the IARU, and it's actually a 91-page PowerPoint presentation, which I would urge people to look at it in detail. Now, the things that struck me, and this is only my own personal view, but bearing in mind I am from the UK, technology has changed considerably. The values, and you acceded to things like cultural changes. Hunting's a very good example. That used to be acceptable and not acceptable anymore. We've had, as far as amateur radio is concerned, we've had changes in the legislation, and we've had considerable changes in the licensing terms and conditions over the years. Now, the whole idea of a document like this is a sort of values and ethics. And so if the organisation does something wrong that is unethical, you can take this document and bash them over the head with it. And they can, if we step out of line, if an employee steps out of line or a member, you can say, well, you shouldn't be doing this. But you can't do that when the document is actually out of date and out of touch and relevant. And that's where I am at the moment. I don't object to the idea. I just think it needs a total revamp. That's my take on it, Martin.
Yeah, well, you're right, because things that are moving on, and we're trying very hard in many ways, and lots of people are trying to, bring this hobby into the 21st century, but then there's a lot of the old boys who would still like to live in the 1950s, so...
Yeah, this was a bit like my granddad telling me how I should behave. Well, no disrespect, life has moved on, life has changed, and it will when I get older. It's just part of the carousel of life. And I don't think this document, as it stands, is here today.
But my problem is, in many ways, is that I am... Okay, let's be honest. Today, this year, I'm 70. I don't think I'm old. I still mix with young people. I get on well with everybody, all age groups. Yeah. But so I do think that things have to move forward. They can't be left as is. But I suppose somebody looking at me from the outside would say, well, he's an old man. What does he know? And you can laugh, but that's the thing. So I think it's important that we do try and drive forward. And as people get to know you and know you're passionate about it, they'll understand that things are being done. But there's a lot of people that are not passionate about this. So they're probably looking and go, yeah, right, it's been written up. Dan's written it up, right. Put it in the drawer for another 4 years, and then we'll pull it out again and dot an I or cross a T and put it back in the drawer. And that's, I think people don't necessarily always take notice, but I'm being
You know, how many people, how many radio amateurs out there know that this document exists?
Well, I did, but then I do try and keep in touch with what's going on.
I did, but I don't think many did.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
couldn't
just
have
my
quoted
opinion.
it.
Yeah, I couldn't give you an exact figure, but I suspect not many.
Yeah, I would suspect not many, because it isn't sexy, for argument's sake. It's not like it's not like the latest radio or something like that.
No, people, people are interested in their ICOM 7300s. They're not interested in all that stuff. But
Yeah.
all that stuff's important because it sort of sets the agenda on how we behave and how we operate.
Certainly does. Chris, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I'm looking at the document now. It's 68 pages. It's an IARU document. It was originally written in the 1920s, but it's been updated a few times. It's now in edition 3 from June 2010. 2010 is 13 years ago now. So it has been updated a few times over the years to reflect, I guess the change in times. Originally it was from I think 1925, something like that, I think. No, sorry, 1928. So I just found it here. But it's still out of date. I think you were saying earlier, Dan, I think has come up with a great idea about the principles in here, which talk a lot about, in the mail, he says things like he never knowingly operates in such a way, etc., etc. It's all got a male perspective. So I think Dan is suggesting that we gender neutralise it because it's alienating women, frankly. The other comment I was going to make was there is also and actually back to Leslie's point. No, I'd never heard of this before. I don't quite know how. I've not come across it before, but I have heard of the DX Code of Conduct, and that's kind of it's not. It's just one page basically. It's just it's 13 rules, I suppose, or 13 things we should follow, which kind of are something similar, I suppose. So this is about being a good operator, and you do see people put on their QRZ page, for example, I follow the DX Code of Conduct, and I think that's a good thing to do. So I think that maybe obviously there's a lot more detail on the 68-page document, but I think the DX Code of Conduct pretty much kind of is more up to date, perhaps way of doing things, shall we say?
And it's also very specific, Chris, as I remember reading it, whereas the amateur code is a lot more abstract. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're probably right, Frank, to be fair. I think you're right. I think the amateur radio code is more about the values maybe of what an amateur radio operator should be, whereas the DX Code of Conduct is more about how you should operate, particularly
behaviors,
DX.
specific behaviors. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So interesting. Martin, have we left you anything to say on this one?
A little bit. I'll be honest with you, this is not something I specifically knew existed. I've seen people put things like this on their QRZ pages. I've seen things like this, not specifically this one. I do read through it and think a lot more people need to read through it. And I'll be honest with you, it should be something that is at least mentioned when people do their foundations and things. Consider it. Well, tune around the HF band at the weekend, try and have a QSO with someone and see how quickly you get booted off the frequency. Loyal, yeah, some people are supportive, progressive, yeah, okay, we're moving on. There's all of these people stuck in the mud, but everyone progresses, to new things, new technologies, digital, better radios, that sort of stuff. I get that. Friendly, yeah, the majority of people on the radio are friendly. Balanced, yeah, okay. Patriotic, there's probably more patriotic in places like the US where they have hurricanes and things like that, and they need to step up and help their country out, that sort of thing. And I get that. From the point of view of being gender neutral, absolutely, I have no issue with that at all. We know we are a very male-dominated hobby. We're not going to go into why I think that is at the moment. That's a whole other conversation. I do think that wording should be changed to bring it up to date. I think Dan is absolutely right with this. I have seen other people saying, you shouldn't call this a male connector or a female connector because no one's asked the connector what it wants to be. And in that sense, sorry, grow up. I'm not having that conversation. It's connector. Get over it.
I would go and I would agree with that one.
Yeah, but you can have it's an A connector or a B connector. Well, have you asked it whether it's an A or a B, USB A or USB B or USB? No, you haven't.
We're going into wokeness.
What plumbing you've got? Get over it. Now, I do wonder, and just the cheeky side of me, and just on the end of this, what's the gender neutral version of Good Buddy? I googled it. There's a lot of suggestions. I'm not comfortable mentioning any of them here, Although one of the things that I've always felt uncomfortable with is the term and the terms XYL and YL, because you are singling out a lady in this case as separate. In fact, there was one podcast that references XYL in their advertising. They put the picture of the lady separate, XYL side of things, and I thought, on principle, I can't even remember the name of it now, but on principle, I didn't download it because I felt they were singling her out. And I thought, that's kind of alienating one of your presenters in your own advertising. Maybe it's something someone put together and didn't really think it through very much. I don't know. But I didn't feel very comfortable of it. But to bring a document up to date, absolutely. You know, we're in 2023, and things are a lot more accepted now. You know, whatever you are physically versus what you are in your head, you know, or I say in your head, to be clear, who you are is, you know, you should be allowed to be whoever you are and whoever you want to be. So why shouldn't we just bring it up to date?
Yeah. Well, just a quick, really off at a tangent. Colin's wife, Sandra, for a long time thought when Colin and I spoke about XYLs, she thought I was talking about an X-whale, you know, the big mammal that swims in the sea. She couldn't get her head around it. But anyway, another story. I'll behave myself.
That is wife. Hello, XYL. What?
Yeah.
For you, Mr. Butler.
Oh, yeah.
Martin, I've got to say, it's not about being politically correct or anything like that. It's just about bringing it up to date.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Inclusion.
Yeah.
Go on, Frank.
Include
Well,
everything.
Let me ask a practical question, but it'll throw a hand grenade in the room, to use your term, Martin, because I think Martin Rothwell and Bill Barnes and I will all respond. Okay, so let's just say this is we've got this all up to date. Oh yes, we've got a good one. We've got it here. Okay, the radio amateur is loyal to the IARU club in their country. Okay, that's the RSGB in the United Kingdom. That's the ARRL here. They've got two in Australia, WIA, and I forget what the other one is. Let's just say we have all this and we're in peace and harmony. And suddenly the RSGB says, Mr. Rothwell, I see you're not a member. You're not being loyal as the code is. Are you in violation of the code?
Frank, I might have to edit this bit out.
But you understand the practical question when the group who's now upholding these values begins to look at what loyalty means. Say, I'm a life member. Oh, I'm real loyal. I'm a life
Oh, sorry.
That's why it's so important to get it right.
I was gonna say I'm a member of the Radio Amateurs of America Club. Isn't that the one for the U.S.?
Well, see, I hear you. Now, but remember now, see, there's a secondary thing here. IARU. Suddenly, you got to be the IARU group, and I don't remember if WIA in Australia is the IARU group. I think it is. But you get where I'm going here. This loyalty thing, this is part of why I have some issues with it. Because Bill, aren't you a member of the ARRL?
Absolutely not.
Hey, please.
I freely admit that.
But you see, I don't think you're being disloyal by choosing to not be a member, and you're in good company because the market share that ARRL has of licensees, as Bob Dylan said, is sinking like a stone.
The running joke is I joined the ARRL when I need a new sticker on my DXCC on the wall, and that is true. That's truth right there. That's the only, when the solar cycle is low. And Bill counts up the DX clicks. He'll join the ARRL for 1 year just to get a sticker. The world's most expensive sticker.
You could probably just get the graphics and download them off the internet and have them made if you want a sticker.
I don't know. I'm weird that way.
Do you know the ARRL? And I was chastised on this on the official ARRL group. They have what they call proprietary software that makes these certificates, and it will not print to PDF. And so if you want a printed version, they have to send it off to some company who's going to scan it. And I tried to tell them that print to PDF has been part of the 3 major operating system classes for about 15 years. And I was told that was none of my business.
Yeah.
by the director of operations at ARRL.
Well,
I'm
the
just trying
funny
to save you some
story,
money.
yeah, funny story is my original DXCC, you cannot photocopy it. The watermark overrides it. The new one I got in 2015, that one I was able to photocopy.
Just take a photo of it against a flat piece of paper with your camera. And
Martin, you're talking logic here. I'm just talking
Yeah,
about something
right.
weird about the printing process.
See,
On
and
the first
loyalty
one.
is not logical. That's the problem.
Because it was just really odd when I photocopied my first one from 2000. It came out with this globe over top of my call sign. I'm like, how does that work?
but the dollar bills are fine. So let me get this right. What you're saying is that I need to join the RSGB again? What's that about? I'm confused.
To be a loyal member.
No.
All right, I think
Right,
you beat
I
this
think-
one, right, Martin?
I think we ought
Martin,
to
would you
move
like to
on.
move us on?
Yeah, we need to move on, boys. But fun all being had, and for our listeners, this is often what it's like. You've heard a bit more of the real podcast. Okay,
The weekend at the convention.
all right, let's move on. Another news story that Ed told me about, Ed Durant DD5 LP, is that there's a new website for working out sizes and designs of antennas and a calculator, and it's the SOTA and sotaantennas.com. Chris, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, this looks really good actually. So there's lots of websites and software you can, websites not so much, software you can use to calculate the modeling of antennas. This website's really good. You can, if you want to figure out what length of wire you need for a particular dipole, like say it's a link dipole, for example, or as you go and find it now, actually click on the link. But there we go. There's lots of calculators there. You can just type in what frequency you want in the sensors. Here you go. Link dipoles, off-center fed dipoles, end fed, half wave antennas, delta loops, and half square antennas. If you click on the link, you type in the frequency that you want, you get a nice 3D picture. You can sort of move it around the screen, and you can type in the frequencies that you want and various other parameters like how far off the ground it is and what sort of wire diameter is, that sort of thing. And it will tell you what sort of lengths you need of your wire. So really, you're very useful. There's a similar one, SOTA beams. I did buy a link dipole kit from them years ago, and they have a link on their website to a similar one for link dipoles. But this has got a lot more options in terms of other antennas that you can model. And yeah, really useful if you want to build your own aerials. This could be really useful for you rather than having to spend a lot of time with what is sometimes quite complicated software or trial and error.
Yeah, I think it was great site. Bill, what's your thoughts?
I agree completely with Chris. This is actually what I spent the most time on when you sent the news articles out the other day. I was in here for probably a good 45 minutes just messing around. And I mean, it even lets you display a Smith chart when you're done picking all your values and stuff. I mean, it's very, very surprising and very, very interesting. And so, for instance, I'm picking on right now this delta loop I was looking at last night, and it gets almost a whole band. Well, it gets almost a whole band. It gets a chunk of the European band. So the one I'm picking on right now, I'm in the CW portion of the band, and the SWR goes up over 50 ohms at at your 7.3 at the top end of the band. It's up near 75 ohms, but it puts all this stuff in a nice format so you can take a look at it. So I highly encourage, even if you're not in the portable antennas, like Ed and I, we do SOTA and we do hiking a lot with our radios. So I'm always looking for something new to try and something different to try. But even if you're not into that, just putting in a regular dipole and just plotting some stuff, you're going to get some visual charts that are going to be interesting and give you some things to think about. So I think it's actually a good resource for just about anybody that's looking at some wire antennas.
Yeah, agree with you, Bill. And it is primarily designed for people who do SOTA. But as you say, an antenna's an antenna, and it's just as useful in other places other than on hilltop or mountaintops. Frank, you've been having a bit of a play with this one as well.
I have, and when the story kind of came out, and I don't remember if it came out through the ICQ podcast news system or not, but I saw this, and I immediately went to the site. I had seen the soda beam that Chris had mentioned. I had used that one earlier, and as I'll talk about later, I'm also fooling around with a Delta Loop. Mine's for portable ops, and I went to this and looked at it, and I think it's very good. Now, can you do all this with other tools? Of course, because they're using some of those other tools behind the scenes. But even if you know how to use those other tools, clearly if you don't, then this just makes it a lot easier. And I'm, no good deed goes unpunished. So I'll fire off some suggestions about modifications and stuff. The Delta Loop that I want to build for portable use, I need it to be inverted. So they just have the standard where the apex is up high. It should be pretty easy just to allow the user to change that, because you might have the longest end of that going vertical. Walt, who is a ham who publishes a lot of YouTube videos up in Virginia Beach, he built one recently where your vertical pole has the longest section, kind of comes off. So, no good deed goes unpunished, as they say. So there'll be a lot of suggestions for how to add new antennas, give modifications, but this could very easily become a clear go-to for many, many hams to do the initial assessment of a particular antenna. I'm very, very impressed.
Yes, me too, Frank. Me too on that one. Right. Martin, what's your thoughts?
My initial thoughts were, this is not new, because I have seen this before. And I'm frantically looking around because I have got pages and links. I'm not on the right computer, unfortunately, at the moment to find the exact link that basically links to all this. It looks like they may be hosting this or have pulled the tools into their website. But I have got lots of similar tools bookmarked that do more or less the same thing. It certainly tells you about how to make the antennas, gives you all the calculators and things like that. But the fact they've pulled it into one page, yeah, okay, great. I'm sure it's been done before, and I probably have a link to it. But yeah, nice little easy to remember, SOTA-antennas.com. Have a look at it. Check it out. It could be a useful resource.
Yeah, well, as I say, good one. Leslie, have we left you anything to say on this? I mean, you go out with the Silverthorn Club and put antennas up, but it could be interesting, yeah?
I did, and I did see it yesterday, and I deliberately left it because I was working on the club accounts, and I thought, if I'm going to go onto the website of this, I'm going to get so distracted I won't be able to do the job at all. So it seems very, very interesting. I like the idea. It's going to be a useful tool, as all these things are. And as soon as I've done the AGM, because I've been busy with the accounts, as soon as those are done, I'm definitely going to look at it, Martin.
Yeah, no problems at all, mate. No problems at all. Well, next one. The ARRL urges comments to the FCC 60-meter ban. Now, I think what they're trying to do, guys, from what I can work out on this one, is they're going to try and drop you guys in the States from 100 watts to 15 watts EIRP. Bill, do you want to go first on this one?
That is exactly true. Someone requested that they give us the IARU 60-meter band, that little slice with 15 watts of EIRP, and drop our 5 channels at 100 watts ERP. So the ARRL is encouraging everybody to put a public comment in to get the keep the current secondary access to the current channels and get the new band as well, so that we can at least have the same band available, hopefully worldwide. I'm gonna comment on this one with the FCC here probably this weekend, and put in my support for that. And it's basically to keep the 100 watt power on the 4 existing channels, and the new 15 kilohertz subband at 15 watts EIRP. The main reason for that is I've done just enough work with on 60 meters over the last couple of years that we need to keep the power up a little bit. I mean, I definitely don't think we should go above 100 watts, but at most times of the day, and for sure today, 100 watts gives you pretty much the mid-Atlantic for me. And so that's a really powerful tool in the tool bag as you're working on different things like emergencies or weather reporting or just general stuff like that. Likewise, another thing that they mentioned in the article you gave us, which is true as far as I can tell, there haven't been complaints about the 5 channels we've been using over the last, I'm not even sure how long we've had these 5 channels. It's been since 2012 for sure. The only reason I know that is I have a band map up here from 2012 and it has the 5 channels on it. So I encourage all the folks in the States that go out and fill out the form and request that they keep the 4 existing channels at 100 watts and add the new band at 15 watts and not drop the other channels or drop the power on the channels, because it's a very useful tool between 40 and 80 meters.
Yeah, but you know what you've done wrong there, Bill? You've just put a very sensible option on the table. People can't handle that. I'm being naughty.
Well, I was going to say, I'm just actually agreeing with what the league said for once.
Yeah, I understand. Frank, what's your thoughts on this?
I just want to applaud Bill's loyalty in agreeing with the league. I think that's a real good expression of that loyalty, Bill. I appreciate that. Now, to be serious for a moment, I'm looking at the U.S. frequency allocation chart for that area, because here's what the question comes down. Okay, why do we have channels? Well, because we got people, other users of the frequency, so they're bunched in with us. And okay, so then we get 100 watts, we put them in the channels, you get, good bandpass filters, and everybody theoretically is happy. So I was trying to look and see who else, and Bill, you may help me out here if you can. I'm just looking and see who we are sharing that with. And because then if we don't have the channelization, and so we got, free reign, free VFO, if you will, okay, so we're going to drop your power so you won't interfere. Who would we be interfering with? And all I can tell is it's stuff that just may not be used very much. But Bill, you tell me what you think, because I'm squinting my eyes here to look at that big chart.
As far as I can tell, the 60 meter band, the primary user is the United States Department of Defense. And we have 5 channels on secondary access as of today. And you'll occasionally, and I mean rarely, but you will occasionally get a channel. Usually for me, it's channel 1, sometimes channel 3. As there will be a digital signal on there, and that is not us. That is the other users of the band. But that's basically what I've noticed over the years, and it's not very often, by the way.
Okay, so and see, I'm looking here, and at least this is a slightly dumbed down chart. It's the one that ARRL has. So if you kind of zoom in and squint your eyes or get a magnifying glass out, you'll see that on 5.3, for example, that vicinity, it says fixed for one block and mobile for the other, and then there's a couple of asterisks. I'm not real sure. I'd have to go down and look. But what is it that the federal government's using in that particular area? They don't have to tell you, and sometimes you don't want them to have to tell you. So that's where the dynamic is for me, just to come back full circle. I don't disagree with anything Bill is recommending, but I wanted to try to address that, because that's what these things come down to, is we look at it a little bit myopically on, hey, what do we want to do and how do we want to do it? But then who are the competitors? for that. And I think that's what the FCC is probably wrestling with. So I'd encourage our particular U.S. listeners to comment, take the time and do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hope that going forward, I don't see any problems. If you've got frequencies you're using, and like we have set frequencies in the UK, if you've got frequencies that are allocated now and there's no problems on those, why take those off you? We could have harmonisation by doing as Bill said, the other frequencies so that you can communicate worldwide, QRP, but you've still got your other 60-metre frequencies in your own country. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. Martin, what's your thoughts?
Well, they're asking for continued use of 60 metres. Part of me wonders why they want to turn the power down to 15 watts. What is the 100 watts interfering with? I haven't got much to say that hasn't already been said. How about, in my own mind, bring the channels in line with the rest of the world, or at least the majority of the rest of the world. I know it's NVIS. I know it's supposed to be like within your own country, but if it's not interfering with anybody, what does it matter? HF doesn't have very much commercial demand. I know there is a demand for it. I know we talked about it before. I know they talked about trading over HF, whatever the financial stuff is over HF. I know
trading over HF.
So I know there is a bit of a demand for that, but the big money, the big bandwidth, and everything that people want is in the UHF and above. I have fights to try and get frequencies for radio microphones, and they run 10 milliwatts in a very, very confined space, and I'm struggling to get frequencies for that, and that's like 600 megahertz and above. So I don't understand, coming down to 60 meters, why we are struggling to find space to harmonize. But say it's a great band. It is the 4 meters of HF, because you go on there, you have a very long QSO, you have a lovely conversation with someone that is delighted to get a contact on that band. Use it or lose it, provide your feedback on it. But yeah, I'd love to see what they're trying to do by why would you want to drop the power? I mean, it's like, if you're not interfering, if you're interfering with something, you need to drop the power now. Simple as. But if you're not interfering with anybody, what does it matter?
True. Well, Leslie, I know you've worked 60 metres in a previous, say, employee.
Previous life. Yes.
But I ain't going any further than that.
Okay.
But from an amateur point of view, have you looked at 60 metres, and what do you think about the American system?
Well, 60 meters is generally used for NVIS. So you're putting the signal straight up and straight down. So where there's previously dead spots due to the skip, you can fill in those dead spots if you like. And I'm just trying to do this off the top of my head. As radio amateurs, we are secondary users. It's done on a non-interference basis. Yes, if you're causing interference, either lower the power or move frequency, and that's part of the terms and conditions of using that band. It's not a problem. If the frequency is clear and there's no problem at all, then why not? Like I say, if the frequency is clear, there's not a problem in my view. But unless somebody can tell me otherwise, and there's something I don't know, but that's why I look at it, Martin.
Yeah, no problem with that. No problems with that, as you say. Chris, have we left you anything to say on this one?
Not a huge amount. I mean, it's not a band I've ever used, to be fair myself, but I think it's been said, really. It's a band that people have already got access to in the States. Not really sure understand why they're wanting to reduce the power. I think we should follow the guidance of the National Society and try to fight to get it to, keep our rights, I suppose. I think it's always good to try to get support. And this is why we have national societies to help us to do this and lobby on our behalf. So I think it's get behind the ARRL and
absolutely
and urge them
That's what they're there
to
for.
keep our rights. Exactly, yeah. Well, not rights. I suppose it's a privilege, isn't it? But there you go. Yes.
Yes, all good. And let's hope it all gets sorted out for you guys in the States. Moving to our last news story, and also this is an ARRL story, but the ARRL launches the NTS newsletter or letter. Now, I wanted to know what NTS was, so I looked it up, and it's National Traffic System. And Frank, you kind of tell me that this is because this is what the ARRL was supposed to be about in the early days. So, would you like to elaborate?
Sure. And sometimes we contemporary hams forget. We have people that say, ham radio, what's that got to do with something called the American Radio Relay League? What? I mean, that's like a sport, right? Isn't it like like a foot race? Would you relay? Well, in that very obtuse language, by today's standards, harkens back to when Hiram Percy Maxim began leadership role in saying, we have these transmitters, and they only go so far. But what if we were to organize people at certain distances, as Bill was talking about with 60 meters, about with a certain power, about what coverage in the U.S. does he get? You can imagine Maxim and his others, such as Clarence Tuska, the co-founder of ARRL, and others, thinking, hey, if we just get people here, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and then maybe we get, we've got these sparse area, pretty soon we can get from one coast to another, and we can pass these messages. Remember, telegraph connected the East Coast and West Coast by wire, by doing it wirelessly. The American Radio Relay League came into being. And so the legacy of our national traffic system is, in fact, that. So, on a personal note, the way it works now is if you remember telegrams and you see them in old movies, hello, Frank, come meet me for dinner. Stop. We're going to have a nice meal. Stop. And you have that as Morse code operators would send them. Having an obtuse form, and you might think, why do that? Well, when you get to looking at how to get traffic from one area to another, you kind of need those fields on that form to be completed so it actually gets somewhere. Here in the U.S., we have something called a zone improvement plan. Some of our listeners don't know what I'm talking about, but if I said zip code, that's what zone improvement plan stands for. So there's a little bit of a parallel there. I'll kind of ring off and let the others, particularly Bill, weigh in from there. But the ARRL, culturally speaking, they can't give up the national traffic system. It's why they were born. And so there is a project called NTS 2.0 in which it recognizes the fact, A, we have cell phones, we have other ways of communicating, and we need to, as Leslie and others said about our amateur code, update it. So I'll pass it back to you, Martin, but I wanted to just make sure our listeners remember that's why the ARRL, or how the ARRL got founded, to do that particular operation, what became our national traffic system.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I'll pass it to Bill. He's told us he's not an ARRL member, but is it still?
But he's
relevant?
loyal, though.
Oh, he's loyal, yeah. But is it still relevant?
Well, it's relevant enough that there's multiple traffic style organizations around the country. It's just that this is the ARRL one is the first. And just like Frank said, there's a couple other organizations out there. Passing traffic on voice and CW is challenging. So I think some people enjoy it because it is challenging. I always get a birthday greetings from my one friend every year sent through the ARRL radiograms, just because that's what he does. He sends traffic for birthday greetings. I'm involved in a few little organizations here and there, and even my local, I don't want to say Aries group or Racy's group, well, I don't even know what they're calling themselves anymore, actually. they're associated with FEMA or PEMA, Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency. So they are ACS. That's the name. Auxiliary Communications. And they use ICS forms. For instance, the incident command system forms, the ones I'm usually, I think it's 213 or 214. 213.
213, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm having a memory problem here, guys. Please be patient. That's a much easier form to fill out than the radiogram form. So a lot of served agencies want the prescribed forms. But even WinLink and my FL Message, which is part of the FL Digi Suite, they all have templates for an ARRL NTS message, and you can fill out all the various fields and stuff and send it very efficiently through one of the digital modes, such as WinLink, or in my case, the net I check into almost weekly's they use Thor 22 for check-ins, and MFSK 31, I think. Yeah, 31 for traffic. And because we're using standardized forms, you're only sending the text with a little metadata to tell it where it goes, and then it fills out the form for you. So you got a nice, reasonable form to use for whatever your purposes are. So, I mean, that's just like the background here, but the gist of the article is that after a couple years now, there is an NTS letter coming out of the ARRL. So they're back re-engaged with the national traffic system. And if you're interested in that stuff, I highly encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter, because I am sure that it will be good information.
Yeah, well, it sounds interesting. Well, we don't have this sort of thing. Well, not that I'm aware of in the UK. I mean, I remember doing APRS back in the very early 90s, and APRS, or late 90s rather, and APRS, you could put a short message, and it rippled around the system and eventually got to you. But nothing like what you guys are talking about. So, Chris, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, I was sort of aware of the name American Radio Relay League, and the radio relay bit being relaying messages. And so I sort of had a vague idea about this, but it's very interesting. It's been a little bit of Googling. There is something called the NTS 2.0 project, which is actually really replacing, not replacing, but looking to supplement, shall we say, NTS. And this is more of digital mode type project where they are using, computers and things, and that's more about supporting emergency communications. But NTS sounds interesting, as the guys are describing now. I'm sort of thinking it's like human-based version of email. So you rather than being relayed around the internet by computers, it's actually been relayed around the airwaves by people, and it ends up at their destination. So it looks quite interesting, although relevance today, I'm not sure it's essential these days, shall we say. But yeah, still it's interesting, and as you were saying, it's kind of where the roots of the ARRL begin. So it's I think it's worth, if the volunteers are still there that want to do it. It's a traditional thing. It's a tradition for the for that service. Then then why not?
Well, I suppose, and I've said this on a number of occasions, if you just say you're going to play radio on Saturday, the chance of it happening are very slim, because family commitments, other things will happen, all sorts of things happen, and you won't do it, or very unlikely do it. Whereas if you're doing something with a purpose, it tends to happen. So if you're sitting down to relay messages on, chances are you'll actually do it because it's booked to do it. So that would be my kind of half thought on this one. Martin, what's your thoughts on it?
I'll be honest with you, I've not really got much to add on this. I did initially think of, what is rapid movement of traffic? Isn't that just a QSO? Because, let's face it, when you're talking at the speed of light. But yeah, I don't have much to add on it. I've learned today where the term ARRL comes from. And you mentioned being able to send messages via APRS. Well, you still can via the APRS network, because I've done it. And I did it relatively recently. And the person I sent the message to got very, very confused. And like, I don't understand why I've got this through here. It seems to be doing this, because he didn't know that you could do it. But yeah, I don't really have much to add on that.
Was it me?
No. So I send messages to Martin occasionally on the DMR talk group. So on 9480, you can send a message from the Anytone radio, and it squeaks his radio. And I typically send him a message like 19 for a copy. I'm on 23 sems. But that's obviously going over a digital talk group, which you can expect to do that. APRS is an older system. It's been around for a while, but I was amazed that it worked. It did.
I am joking. I'm aware. I remember receiving some messages a while ago on APRS, so I know it's a feature that it's got, although it's not often used, I suppose. But yeah, it's something you can use it for. Could be useful.
Smartphone. Don't do that, because I've got a smartphone with a signal.
Yeah, well, the reason sometimes I don't get your messages you send to DMR radios is I might be using my D-Star or my Fusion radio, so I don't get the message.
Yeah.
But that's my fault. Leslie, have we left you anything to say on this one?
No, I've been listening with interest on this one, Martin. So like I say, I'm just listening, and yeah, it's a different one I'm used to. But hey, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, but we'll wish them all the best success. Well, that's the end of our news stories. Now let's find out what the guys have been up to. Going across my sheet, I'm going to go from right to left, because Bill, you may still have that hard stop. I don't know. So over to you first, Bill. What have you been up to?
Yes, I do have a hard stop here in a few minutes, so good timing, actually. The biggest thing I think I've done in the last few weeks is the 2023 Pennsylvania QSO party. I was able to get a few hours on Saturday before a wedding that I needed to attend, and a few hours in the morning on Sunday, and a few hours in the afternoon on Sunday. So I ended up working 149 stations, 141 on phone, and 8 on CW. I end up missing 3 Pennsylvania counties, so I didn't get all the Pennsylvania counties, or 4 Pennsylvania counties. Sorry, I reread that line wrong. But I was hoping to get all the counties this year, just so I can get a certificate. But it was nice to be able to actually contest in a while. Had a little trouble while I was sending CW, troubleshooted that. That's kind of normal at this point, to run into a glitch when you don't contest every weekend. But it was a good time, and I had a good conditions. Likewise, looking back through the log here, end of September, I did the CQ Worldwide RIDI contest for a little bit. I think I only got a couple. Yeah, that was 2 hours. I did get to work a few POTA stations. Got a few DXpeditions on FT8, Uganda, Swains Island, and last night I just picked up Kristen, Dechua, and Go Islands. That is like Van Gogh, ZD9W. So I was able to pick them up. But that is pretty much what I've been up to. Is a little bit of contesting, a little bit of DX chasing, and it's been a pretty good month. So back to you. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna have to drop here.
Yeah, okay, Bill. Well, it sounds like you've been having fun. And as I say, thanks for joining us tonight. I know it's been tight and work's been after you most of the night. So look after yourself, Bill, and thanks for joining.
Yep, 7-3s.
73. Right. Frank, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been continuing to do a little work on something I mentioned last time I was on. It's an inverted delta loop. Several presenters today commented about delta loops, Bill being one of them. I'm really focusing this for portable use, and it's really around these little 17-foot telescoping aluminum whips that are very popular, kind of good good parts to begin, with the inverted part of the loop, connecting it by a wire. You're able to telescope that down and pack it up. Then, of course, you got to deal with all the impedance mismatch and variation. So I'm tinkering with that. And I'm doing a model of it in Easy Neck as well, so I can tinker with height to see what that's likely to do. Because as I've published in a Practical Wireless magazine and then some follow-up talks that I'd given to Sutton and Cheam, height above ground really affects loop antennas, whether they're delta or not. So anyway, I'm doing a little bit of that. That's kind of fun. I wound up running into the SOTA antennas tool that we've mentioned as one of our stories here. And it's just really, really good to begin with. Now, I did find out something since we closed that story here a few minutes ago. The reason that this site was developed is the SOTA map site that I think SOTA Beams may have put out. That's going to close down soon. So the SOTA-antennas.com will at some point in the near future be the successor antenna design site there. So I'm still working on that portable Delta loop, but the 17-foot whips have continued to intrigue me. So I've got a second set of antennas for portable use, one of which is simply a 20-meter monoband Yagi, a 2-element piece of PVC pipe. Also doing a little work on 3-element Yagis for 15 and 10-meter portable use. And they'll be lightweight. And I hope to have the finished product so they'll disassemble and pack themselves into the boom. So you've just got a piece of PVC pipe, with the caps on in there. We'll see where that goes. Just having fun right now. Another thing is I'm revisiting an earlier concept that I created a few years ago. It's called Smart Saturday Morning Amateur Radio Time. Now, the day and time is one that appeals to a lot of ham operators, particularly those who can't work, who can't do amateur radio stuff during the day because they're working. So I'm taking that concept of smart and a program called Get Smart at the library and my development activities with the Jackson Amateur Radio Club and a formal partnership with the Madison County Public Library System. It's a good vehicle for SMART. The libraries want STEM and related activities. I've designed a logo and a concept document, Get Smart at the library. So we plan to have quarterly Saturday meetings at the Madison Library branch. If you're organizing this, Martin, you do have some privileges. That's the library closest to my home. So they've got a nice little area behind the library with a gazebo and some permanent tables under some nice oak trees and kind of a garden setting. And there's some parking and you kind of drive through there. And it's just going to be a great place for us to do an activation there on a Saturday morning. And we'll have some other smart programs at the library that the Jackson Amateur Radio Club will take the lead on of just introducing amateur radio to the public. A lot of times people go to the library with their kids on Saturday morning. So we'll see where that's going to go. It's kind of a win for both parties here. So I've been doing some organizational work there. In previous podcast episodes, I've mentioned my battery box build that I've done with a couple of 1,000-watt inverters on two 100-amp-hour batteries that have Bluetooth built into the battery management system. Well, I have two remaining 100-amp-hour LiFePO 4 batteries that are dumb in the sense they don't have Bluetooth, but you can add a Bluetooth-based shunt measurement across that. Sometimes some companies like Victron call them smart shunts. So I'm going to design two more boxes, this time without the inverters. I'll add things like 50 amp and 35 amp power pole ports, as well as some of the newer USB 3 ports, and particularly the power delivery or PD delivery ports. My Microsoft Surface Pro and some other devices, you can charge them directly off the PD ports and things. So I'll try to have some of those ports there, and they'll have real-time remote monitoring of the state of charge through a Bluetooth app. And finally, I've been doing some club development work with the Vicksburg Amateur Radio Club, arranging programs for monthly meetings. And earlier this week, we had Mike Walker of Flex Radio come in by Zoom and do a program for us. And it's now on YouTube. And this is a club that's kind of rebuilding itself after becoming a meet and eat club mostly. And, let's talk on the 2-meter repeater. And so we've really brought back HF in a big way and ramped up the activities for that club. And this is their first YouTube video. So if the listeners out there want to show some love to a club that's kind of on the rebound, the Vicksburg Amateur Radio Club at Vicksburg ARC on YouTube, I'll give you the ubiquitous please like and subscribe Mike Walker's talk. So in any case, that's what I've been up to, Martin, and been trying to stay out of trouble.
Well, sounds like you've been having lots of fun, Frank, which is the important thing. So good one. Leslie, what have you been up to since we last spoke?
Well, did we cover the Silverthorne Amateur Camp?
I will allow you to go with it again because it would have been about 6 weeks ago if you did.
Oh, well, we had the camp with the Silverthorne Radio Club, and it was the end of August, and as is obligatory in this country, it rains. So we got absolutely soaked to the skin on that one. But we did have a great barbecue provided by the ladies, Racinda and Isabel, and they did an absolute fabulous job of keeping everyone fed. So many thanks to them, and it was really appreciated. Now, what have I been doing? I went to Guernsey for a week and took some radio equipment, took my handheld, took the 817, Echo Link, and my little Watson handheld. I operated from Guernsey, Sark and Herm, which was really interesting indeed. A little bit disappointed in the 817, but I think it was the antenna is just not really up to it that's provided. So I worked back into the UK, which was really good, and also visited the Guernsey Amateur Radio Society, and it was, shall we say, interesting to find. I found this leisure centre, and if you look on their website, I found the leisure centre, and it's pitch black, and I'm going around the building trying to find it, and I can't see in front of me, and I've got my little torch, and I thought, well, there's the building on the right, and there's that thing, and I'm trying to line it up, and there's this little red arrow on their picture, we are here. So I thought, there's nothing there. So I goes along, and there's this sort of gap in the bush, and there's like I could see like 10 feet of thick feet of concrete, and this door was open with a light, so it's obviously an old bunker, a German bunker. So I went in, poked my head around, and then poked my head around another door, and then found them, and they said, "Oh, how did you find us?" So I'd like to thank the Guernsey Amateur Radio Society for their hospitality, and I did work back into the UK to a friend of mine at the Silverthorne Radio Club, so I was very chuffed with that. So thank you guys, very much appreciated. Good bit of operating, lots of walking, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself, Martin. Over to you.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you thoroughly enjoyed yourself. I have operated from Guernsey, Jersey, and like yourself, Sark, Alderney, and Herm. Herm's a lovely little island. Nothing there apart from glorious beaches. But I take it you took my advice of take the ride up the hill at Sark.
You mean at the bus stop?
Yeah. You can laugh about it, but it's a long walk up that hill, mate.
I know. £1.50 to go up. I thought, you know what, I'll pay the £1.50.
Yeah. Well,
Cars on, not allowed on Sark.
Yeah, true. I think they got a few tractors, but that's about it.
Yeah.
But when we went many moons ago, it was a lovely day, and we thought, well, we'll just walk up the hill. What's the problem? Didn't realise what the hill was. So, yeah. So I was younger then, Leslie, so I was all right. But, the guys on Guernsey, lovely guys. I've met them, or some of them, good time ago, though, now. And the guys on Jersey as well. And it's a lovely island.
I made one mistake, Martin.
What's that?
I was doing me walking, and there was this beach, and they said there's two beaches. There's one to the left, and there's one to the right. One's easy, and the other one's difficult. The one's easy, so I thought, you know what, I'll take the one to the left, and I went all followed the path, and I thought, okay, and then there was this steep, treacherous path going down to the bay. So I thought, you know what, let's just do it. Now that was fine, and that was a struggle. Getting back was torture, absolute torture. But I done it, and hey, it was great.
Yeah, great fun there, great fun. So yeah, Martin, what have you been up to since we last spoke?
Well, we spoke the other day, but on here, you mean? I'll be honest with you, I have operated on Guernsey and Jersey as well, although that was via an ISDN line and their local BBC radio station, so I think that's kind of cheating. What have I been working to? I have been attempting to reprogram my Anytone 878. It's frustrating me for a bit because when you go to a new channel, I say new channel, a channel you've not used before, it is set to automatically PTT APRS. So if I transmit, say, something I dekey, it then retransmits APRS on the same frequency. And that's on every analog channel. And although I can turn it off per channel on the handset itself, there's got to be a way to do it in the code plug. And can I find it in there? No. So I've been having a little bit of a play with that and getting a little bit cross with it. Other than that, obviously, you and I had quite a long chat on 77s on the way up to an event the other day. I've been on the talk group a bit. Actually been on D-Star today, Reflector 1C. Spoke to a guy in Cyprus, a 5B4, someone near Paphos, a guy called Richard. I don't know if that's a guy that you might know. I think you've mentioned a Richard before in Paphos area, so maybe the same guy, Martin. Other than that, only other radio...
It wasn't Peter, was it?
No, it's definitely Richard.
It wasn't Peter, right?
Wasn't Peter, no.
You know, from the Bible?
Remember we had this conversation about not drinking during the podcast? Other than that, obviously we went to the RSGB convention. I am, full disclosure, not a member of the RSGB, but I went along for the podcast to record our meetings. So we lugged a load of equipment up there. Try and spot the bit in there when it goes out, when the RSGB guy avoids the question that I ask him about bringing back practicals to the test. And then Chris brings him back to it later and he tries to avoid it again. It's an interesting lesson. But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much all I've been up to at the moment.
Yeah, sorry, you were probably working Richard 5B4 AJG. Richard was over in the UK recently.
He was.
And we spoke once, but unfortunately never got to meet up. So, Richard, if you're listening, I apologise. I was all over the show and I know you were busy. So, yeah, best wishes to you and Christine, and I hope all goes well, mate.
That is the same guy. Just put his call sign. It's the same name that came up on the same picture. So, yes, that's him.
Yeah. Go on, Frank.
Martin, before our pastors start emailing me, you know, we do have some listening. That would be Paul, who was isolated on Pathos. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not Peter, but Paul.
I want you to go and see your pastor and take the penance, Frank.
I will.
Yeah, right.
I will do that.
Pastor, can you you're not thinking about your stomach, Frank?
We're being daft.
Can I do what? Can I what do? Now look, my pastor hosted churches on the air. I will, and had a food truck with ice cream. I'll have you know, I am not going to say ill words about my pastor. So.
Not if he's doing ice cream, Frank. I reckon he's a good guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right, Chris. What have you been up to since we last spoke on the podcast?
Mine's also quite reasonably short and sweet. We had a great talk from a chap called Frank Howell at the Radio Club in September. I think it's been since the last time I was on the podcast. So thank you, Frank, for doing that for us. Talking about an HF loop. So that was good. Other than that, and I'm sure you're going to hear either on this podcast or on a future one, as Martin Butler was saying, we've been to the RFGB convention and we've put a couple of sessions there, discussion sessions, which I think went well. The discussion went pretty well. We didn't have many attendees, but the discussion went pretty well, and hopefully that'll come out on as a feature fairly soon. But apart from that, I haven't really been doing a huge amount of rage, I'm afraid. been pretty busy in other ways in the last few weeks, so I haven't had a lot of time, I'm afraid. So that's it from me.
Yeah, great, Chris. Well, as I say, you, Martin, and I spent a lot of time on 77s on Saturday, driving up and down the motorway, but that was quite fun. And yeah, we went to the RSGB convention. We had Colin over, who managed not to operate ever. I don't even know why I take a radio for him at times, but he managed not to operate. So there you go. Operating, well, I did some 2-meter operating the week before we went up to the convention. And the week before, I'd been out with a couple of other guys, and I thought, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go out on my own, and I'm going to take my 2-meter and do a bit of 2-meter FM from the hilltop, just for fun, because the week before there was the 145 Alive happening, and I sat there. And what I did was I took my my satellite antenna, elk log periodic, and I fitted it onto my mast up at about 10 feet and just set it vertically and just had a chat. And my first chat was a gentleman at Alexandra Palace, which is right the other side of London, and he was quite chatty. It's a guy called David M0HKR. I had a nice chat with David. He was quite pleased because he actually got somebody on 2 meters to talk to. He was doing a POTA activation and a bunkers on the air, and I was his first contact for both of those, so he was quite pleased with that. And not too difficult from where I am to work that sort of distance. I don't remember now what David was actually operating, but it was fun, and we had a nice clear call. And yeah, David's a real nice guy. A little bit later, I worked another gentleman, Mike M0ASW, and Mike. Originally, I could hear him, but I had no signal strength. And he said to me, I got no signal strength from you. So I swung this little beam, and sure enough, he came up a couple of S points. And I was using my FT817 on about 2.5 watts, running FM, 2.5 watts. And I had a conversation with him, and he was over 40 miles away. And he was on a handheld. Now, all right, with the antenna I had, I was probably doing the heavy lifting, but I was still only running 2.5 watts. And we had a chat, and he said, Martin, he said, I take my hand out walking with me all the time, and very rarely, if at all, ever get anybody to talk to. He said, it's a real pleasure to actually work somebody on 2 meters FM. So I think the moral of the story is, there are people out there, and if you don't put a call out, you ain't going to work them. If you put a call out, there's a fair chance somebody will come back to you. And, all right, 40 miles is nothing for somebody who's doing HF or running, 100 watts or whatever. But 2.5 watts, 40 miles away, I think that was quite reasonable, personally. And Mike and I had a great conversation. Been doing a fair amount of mobile operating, usually from the car, because I spent quite a bit of time in the car recently. And last but not least, I've been trying to do the UK side of smart radio, which Frank talked about. And I'm having problems with my local authority, put it that way. So much so, they're just ignoring me. And I'm not going into great detail, but I've spoken to my Member of Parliament, and he's now starting to work on my behalf to try and wake them up. But I honestly believe that the fact that I've involved somebody else will mean that it'll probably come back as a no. So I need to find somewhere else, Frank, to get this off the ground in the UK. But I will do it. I'm not going to be off put. So that's what I've been up to. Right, all that's left for me to do now, guys, is thank you for joining us and say 73s to you and move on to the podcast. So I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Howard, M0TCH.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Thank you, guys. Another good episode, yeah.
Yeah, good one. I'd like to thank Mr. Martin Rothwell, M0SGL.
It's been fun.
Yeah, good one. I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH.
Glad to be here, and thanks for the invitation.
No problems, Frank. Great to have you. And last but not least, and you haven't played his train jingle recently, Martin, is Mr. Leslie Butterfields at G0CIB. Thanks for joining us.
I don't work on the trains anymore, but anyway, thank you for inviting me, Martin. It's been a bit of a ding dong tonight, but hey, it's just all been great, all good fun.
Yeah, we can't always agree, mate, but
it doesn't matter.
No, as the other groups say, and Karen's been very vocal to me on this subject, she said, we might not agree, but we never fall out. We always respect the other person's...
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right then, I'll say 73 to you guys, and I've got to move on. 73.
See ya.
Cheerio.
73.
For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
Now it's time to have a look at the news in brief from me, Colin M6BLY. We start with news here of a new publication available for those of you who are interested in POTA, Parks on the Air. So the ARRL has produced a book aptly titled The Parks on the Air Book, and it gives you a look at setups and processes of 14 operators from a variety of skill levels and backgrounds, and offer advice and motivation for taking your radio out to a park. Each chapter includes a detailed gear list, so you can see exactly what your fellow operators were using. And they're, covering some interesting people, including Kerry White, KB3 Whiskey Alpha Victor, Clint Sporrett, Whiskey 9 Alpha Victor, for just a few people that are covered in the book. So some interesting stuff there, and it covers those things like satellite operation, QRP, urban backpacking. So pretty much however you want to get on the air to do a POTA, there should be a option there for you to get involved. So basically, book retailing for $23. Usual discount for ARRL members are available, and we'll pop a link on the show pages so you can order your copy and get involved in the next POTA activation. Now, chess and amateur radio actually have quite a long sort of association. The concept began back in 1912, where a group of students from Case Western Reserve University wanted to challenge chess players at the Ohio State University. And although some of the story is a bit debated, etc., about exactly what happened, as I say, they were basically using Morse code transceiver to send the moves to each other. Well, recently, as I say, they decided to start up again this challenge over 100 years from its original moment, where different universities got involved and, as I say, taking part in a tournament where basically they're relaying the moves either by using voice or Morse code. So again, basically they're even using channels like Echolink through a Cleveland, Ohio repeater, as I say, to take down the moves and pass them across to the students as they work from there. This is all being supported by the ARRL's Collegiate Ham Radio program, and this ham chess event, as I say, hopes to attract not only chess players into the hobby, but obviously, I suppose, in reverse, amateurs into the hobby of chess. So an interesting way of binding two hobbies across from there. So as always, more information on the ICQ podcast webpage, and you can check out, as I say, news about this interesting challenge that's going on. Now to the more commercial side of our hobby, and GigaParts have announced they are expanding to a new location in Huntsville, which will feature 55,000 square feet of space. In addition to a larger storefront, they aim to expand product lines to include photography, astronomy, general aviation, and maker components for the first time. So this is to continue their support of the ham radio hobby and the equipment they've been supplying for for the last 25 years. So as always, we wish them success in their expanded endeavours. Right, well, now we head over to our features episode where our colleague Ed Durant, DD5 Liam Papa, took time out from the RSGB convention to find out more about the importance of WRC Agenda 9.1B and its importance to the hobby. As always, we hope you enjoy the feature, and thanks, Ed, for taking the time out from convention to arrange that interview for us.
And now, what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast.
Okay, I'm here at the RSGB convention in Milton Keynes, and I've been lucky enough to get hold of Barry G4SJH, who is the global lead for the IARU on the WRC agenda item 91B. First of all, I'll hand this over to Barry to give you a quick information about what the WRC is, for anybody who doesn't already know about this, but this is actually very important to the hobby. Barry, thanks for sparing me the time for the interview, and tell us a little bit about the WRC and what you're actually doing for the meeting coming up.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Ed, and thanks for allowing me some time with you today to give you a little overview on what's happening here. So the agenda item 9.1B will be tackled at the forthcoming World Radio Conference, WRC 23. This is the highest level conference that runs every 4 to 5 years and is hosted by the International Telecommunications Union, the ITU, and in fact the ITUR sector, the radio communications sector. And it's a gathering of all the member states. It's a full global meeting. The outcome has treaty status, and in fact all countries, most countries sign up to the treaty at the end of the conference. And the conference is the only body that has the competence to make changes to the ITUR radio regulations. So the radio regulations set the framework for all the international radio system, radio communication operation for all services, whether it's amateur service, which of course we're interested in here, or the fixed service, or the satellite service, mobile service, and so on. These are all part of the provisions in the radio regulations. And I'm there as the International Amateur Radio Union, as we just said, and the IARU has a sector member status in the ITUR, so it's a recognised observer and can participate, not perhaps in the final decision making, because this is an issue for the nations, but we can certainly participate in the discussions and the preparations and so on as we lead up to the conference.
Okay, thank you. That's very succinctly described and very informative for those who don't know about that. Now, I know from talking with you and your colleagues in Friedrichshafen earlier this year that there is certain concerns, and I believe this is something to do with the agenda item 9.1b, and also that you've been to some preparation meetings about that. And so where do we stand, and on what's all the fuss?
What's all the fuss? Yeah, very nice. Thank you. So this agenda item 9.1b, as hopefully people are aware, affects the 23 centimetre band. It's 1240 to 1300 megahertz. And the problem is more of a regulatory problem for us than perhaps a technical problem. And the issue is that across this frequency band, amongst other radio communication services, is the radio navigation satellite service. It has an allocation from 1240 to 1300 also, and they have this on what is known as a primary basis in the radio regulations. This means that they can expect to be protected from interference from other services and can have the authority to require other services, and in particular secondary services, to not cause interference. And unfortunately, the amateur service and the amateur satellite service in this frequency range have a secondary status to their allocation. So this means that the amateur service is duty bound, shall I say, or has a responsibility not to cause interference to the radio navigation satellite service, and if there is interference, then amateur transmissions would have to cease. Unfortunately, there have been a few cases of interference which have been recorded, not many I have to say, but it has kind of highlighted the issue. So now we're in a process of trying to find a technical solution that can allow the amateur service and the radio navigation satellite service systems, and there are 3 in this band, to be able to coexist and operate at the same time. in these frequencies. So this has been a topic that has been under study in the ITUR since the agenda item was defined 4 years ago, and has been worked on through the study group system within the ITUR. There have been many meetings, actually. There have been 2 working parties in the ITUR involved, one that represents the Radio Navigation Satellite Service and one that represents, other services, but includes amateur service and the amateur satellite service. And we've been meeting over 4 years, and I think there have been pretty much 8 sessions in both of those working parties to try and prepare the ground to solve this issue at the WRC that is coming up very soon. The way forward is that, having recognised the problem, so over the what is called the study period, which is the 4 years from the last WRC to this forthcoming one, the issue is being discussed in 2 working parties in the ITUR. And having recognised the problem and carried out the work to identify how the amateur service uses the 23 centimetre band, this information has then been used to develop studies to try and get a handle or on the size of the potential issue for the radio navigation satellite service. Now, having done this, it seems that the way forward now is to try and find a way to avoid, as far as possible, an overlap between the amateur use of the band and the radio navigation satellite service use of the band. Now, unfortunately, the use by the RNSS is quite intensive, and we're finding that we are, let's say, being asked to move to the sort of edges of the band, or find parts of the band where we fit perhaps between the RNSS systems where we could still continue our operations. And we've been doing that and building that into a so-called ITUR recommendation. So this provides guidance to regulators and to administrations to say, if you want to operate the amateur service and the radio navigation satellite service in your country, then look at this guidance and see how you might want to arrange the amateur services in this band.
Is there a danger then, if this isn't accepted at WRC, that we could lose the band completely? Or are we at the stage now that we think we're far enough that we have a way of working to a solution?
That's a good question, Ed. Thanks for that. And it's an important point, because actually it is specifically identified in the work program, and this is carried out through an ITUR resolution, actually, which is what sets the work program right at the start of the process. The removal of the allocation is outside the scope of the discussion. There is no discussion about removing the amateur service and the amateur satellite service from the band, but we're trying to find how to accommodate it. Now, unfortunately, it does mean that potentially quite a large portion of our band is perhaps not as usable as it was in the past. But what we've tried to do from the IARU perspective is to do our best to ensure that pretty much all the applications we have today in the band, so narrowband DXing, EME, digital TV, satellite operation, and so on, can still operate somewhere in the band. Now, okay, we may have to do some reconfiguration of our band plans, this is true, but I think that we've come to quite a nice sort of set of compromises as we move forward that can hopefully allow this to happen.
Well, that's very good news, actually. And just to move us on a little bit, when does the WRC meeting take place, and when actually would there be a decision? Because I believe the WRCs take almost a month in all. So when does the battle begin?
Well, okay, yes. The WRC will take place from around the middle of November to the middle of December, and it is exactly 4 weeks, actually.
Okay.
It's the whole 4 weeks, not nearly,
okay.
Unfortunately. And what will happen there is the conference will consider whether the agenda item that was defined, 9.1b, is satisfied, and whether the resolution which resolved to look at this issue, look at the studies, find whether a solution is needed, has been itself also satisfied. And then the resolution is suppressed by the conference, the work is complete, whatever changes are needed to the radio regulations, which may be to identify somehow this recommendation, will be made, and then the matter hopefully will be finished. Certainly from our perspective and the perspective of the amateur community, we would like to see this matter finished.
So just for my clarification here, basically the WRC is where the proposed solution is presented and hopefully accepted. How does that get implemented? Is that then on a country by country basis, or is that an ITU that then at some later stage says, okay, this is how we're going to operate in the 23 centimetres band?
Yeah, there's a number of important elements in that question, actually. So you're right in describing the process there. Effectively, for this agenda item and all others, what comes into the conference are a number of so-called methods to satisfy the agenda item, whichever agenda item it is. And these are put forward in the conference, if you like options, if you want to call them that.
Yeah.
And then the conference will decide, all the countries around the table will decide which way forward is the right way forward to solve the issue and to keep everyone happy. And it has to be a kind of consensus. At the end of the day, this is the way forward. And then
that's going to be reached before the end of WRC. It's not something we have to wait during the conference. During the conference, we have to wait another year before it happens or anything.
Absolutely right, because at the end of the conference, the agreement is that the solution is implemented in the radio regulations in a very specific way. I mean, the actual text is discussed and agreed. Okay, they don't amend the radio regulations themselves because that has to be done. That takes many months in the background for the ITR to do, but basically the text that solves the agenda item is agreed, and then you'll know that that's the solution. Now, in terms of how that's implemented in countries, now this is another issue because the radio regulations only relate to the international framework for the use of the radio spectrum, not what happens in country. Every nation can, to some extent, do whatever it likes nationally, so long as it doesn't cause interference to a neighbouring country by contravening the radio regulations which set the international framework. So what happens then is the radio regulations would be modified in some way, perhaps, because actually there could be a solution where there is no change to the radio regulations for this topic. And then as the radio regulations are then published, probably midway through 2024, then I guess countries can then decide whether they want to carry out any implementation or not of the recommendation and so on. So then you'll start to see it rolled out sort of nationally. The downside of this a little bit is that, of course, there could be, again, ongoing uncertainty as to how the ban needs to look in different regions, perhaps, and in different countries. And this is something we want to try and minimise. So, yeah, there will still need to be some careful consideration of things as they move forward after the WRC. But at least that issue in the World Radio Conference, hopefully fingers crossed, will be solved.
And how long did you say you've been working on this, just on this particular agenda item?
5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
Crikey.
Since before it was the proposal to form the agenda item was under discussion before WRC 19, and then it's 4 years since WRC 19. So yes, a long drawn out process.
You obviously put a lot of work into there, and I was saying to you before we started, your colleagues at the IARU have a great respect for your knowledge and the amount of work you put in. So let me, on my behalf and behalf of the listeners from ICQ podcast, say thank you. And really, it's good that we have people like you that have the skills and the ability and the willingness to represent us in this way. So Barry, thank you very much for this interview. It's been very informative and very conclusive, and I wish you the best, or wish the whole of the IARU the best at the WRC 23 in November.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ed. And I would just say that actually we have a good international team, not just me, on this topic from all regions, Canada, Brazil, Germany, and Japan, and wherever. So it is a big team effort, and everybody has tried very hard to bring the best solution that we can so that we can continue to operate in the ways that we want to operate in the band.
To find the best compromise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The ICQ Podcast. Getting it said for amateur radio.
Well, thanks, Ed, DD5 Liam Papa, for that wonderful, informative feature there. Find out more about the importance of WRC Agenda 9.1b. And I suppose for all of us out there who wonder what, as it is, national and international groups do for us, etc., it's great to get an insight into the work that the guys are, as I say, working on for us, and why the importance of this agenda is going forward. You also, as well, Ed's kindly stepped into the breach for an episode of this feature, as we're working on a couple of interesting features for you in the next couple of episodes, which are fleshing out ideas at the moment. So Ed really picked up for us there as we're working through that work. I say thanks, my friend, for picking that feature up for us at RSGB Convention. Well, as always, we'd of course like to thank the monthly subscription donors that support us in everything we do with your podcast show. As I say, if you found value on today's show, it's a very, very simple thing we ask you to do, and that's to go to icqpodcast.com/donate, and as I say, send a donation to us that reflects the value you got from the show, from many options available, and as I say, keep your show advert free going forward and keeps us producing the ICQ podcast. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Howard, Mike Zero Tango Charlie Hotel, Martin, Mike Zero Sierra Golf Lima, Frank K4 Foxtrot Mike Hotel, Bill Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, and Leslie Golf Zero Charlie India Bravo for taking part in the News Roundtable, and we do appreciate your thoughts and opinions on what's going on in our hobby. Well, as always, you can keep up to date with everything we do at the ICQ Podcast by, signing up to our newsletter, which you can find on the ICQ Podcast webpage. It keeps you up to date with everything we're doing, when shows are released, etc. And we obviously do, highly suggest you take the opportunity to sign up for that newsletter. And last, but certainly not least, as I say, check out the ICQ Podcast Digital Group. As I say, it's a great way of getting any amateur radio device working across your digital network. So D-Star talking to Yaesu Fusion, etc. And as I say, you can talk to your fellow listeners and presenters on that talk group. So you can find out more about that again at the ICQ Podcast webpage. Right, well, what's left for me to do is to bid you guys all 73s. Hope you continue to enjoy our fantastic hobby, and we look forward to doing the show for you again in a fortnight's time. 73s all.